Welcome to the final episode of Series 53. This is a great one. We've got some stellar discussion and some pretty great fanfic coming up. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to hear this one. It's good. This whole series, it's very good.
So good.
It's very good. So good. Stay tuned after the episode for announcements, including an announcement about the Catacon Kickstarter for this year, new merch for our show, and of course, our Patreon thank yous.
Absolutely. Until then, enjoy the episode, everybody.
Welcome back to our discussion episode. Last time we finished our session 0 for Nova. This episode we will be discussing the character creation process. We are excited to welcome back Spencer Campbell. Do you want to reintroduce yourself for everyone and tell us about the character you made in our last episode?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Spencer Campbell. I publish under the name Gila RPGs. You can find me online at gilarpgs.com. That's also my Twitter handle. Those are the best places to find all the games that I work on. I made a pox spark last time, which is a sort of a plague spark. My whole goal is to try and spread a small damaging plague across the battlefield and then activate it to horrible symptoms for my enemies as we face off into the world. My call sign is Rasp, although that is not my call sign. My character is named Isaac. I am a scientist that works at this giant city that we created last time. And my partner is the one who does the field testing, who is the Pogspark, though they came back and died of some sort of infection that I'm not familiar with. And it seems to have hints of lunar cult corruption going on. And to not cause a panic in the city, I have kept my partner's death secret. As I try to figure out what is going on. So I have been going out into the field in my partner's spark, highly untrained, not very particularly good at this thing, and really desperately trying to ensure that people don't realize that I'm not actually Rasp, that I am the partner. I'm just the scientist from the field who is doing my best to try and do the field work and the lab work and figure out this lunar cult conspiracy all at the same time.
It's fine.
Man.
What could go wrong?
It'll be fine. It's not like there's a lot to worry about anyway in this world or city.
Right. I mean, it's all very safe. Very safe. Ryan, can you tell us about your character?
Yeah, so I made call sign Crimson Lily, the Sanguine Spark, which is basically your vampire spark, because why not? She, her pronouns, goes by Liliana in pilot, in civilian form, I guess you could call it. Liliana is a veteran to piloting sparks. She started off as a Voyager spark, doing recon and whatnot for kind of an advanced team, but had gotten separated with the other, the Sanguine Spark, at one point, was doing some scouting, came back to her partner dead and out of the spark, with no traces of what exactly happened. Made a quick decision with enemies quick on her tail to pop into the Sanguine Spark and pilot that out of there. And has been in the Sanguine ever since. So she's had this for probably over 5 years now, and has gotten quite proficient with it, I would think, at this point. And her unique portion of the spark is because of her iridescent black and blood red cape that when it flows in the wind, it looks like flowing blood. And that just is such a good aesthetic.
That's a very good aesthetic.
I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
Very proud
All
of you.
right. Amelia, tell us about yours.
Well, I picked the Grim Spark, the Necromancer Spark. I know you're all shocked. My call sign is Appetite. My pilot name is Hades, they, them. Sort of a veteran, semi-veteran, piloted a Scorch first to kind of learn how to do all of this, but was really good at like the tactics and sort of managing the battlefield. Worked my way up to being a Grim. And now I am hanging out in this great, terrible city where nothing is going wrong at all. And hanging out with these two that are also have nothing going on. Everything's fine.
Truly is ready to all implode it on itself at a moment's notice.
There's so many little strings to pull on here. Like I feel like we have given a GM a lot to work with here.
Oh yeah. Political intrigue, all the way up to eldritch horror.
Yeah. And something for everyone in between.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
We don't have any romance, but
there's
still time. There's still time.
There's always time for romance. Amazing. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive right into a segment that we are calling D20 for your thoughts.
D20 for your thoughts?
In this segment, we like to talk to our guests about their thoughts on character creation and how it relates to this game and other games. But first, the most cliche question of all RPG podcasts ever. How did you get here? How did you start playing RPGs? How did you start designing them?
So I got, I'm a relatively late bloomer in terms of role-playing games. I didn't get into role-playing games until grad school. So I had played board games and all of that, all up until that point, but had never dived into RPGs. And with my brother and some of his close friends in Chicago, I took a stab at running a Dungeon World campaign. And my brother is an improviser, a comedian in Chicago. And if you're unfamiliar with Chicago, Second City produces some of the best comedic actors ever. And so I was sitting at a table with a bunch of improv comedians as a first-time GM.
Running a game for the first time. You are brave.
And, it was unbelievably fun to play with them. And I say this a lot. I think that playing those early campaigns, those early sessions with them had a huge impact on me as a designer because I was free of those concepts of, Dungeon World on its own is not an inherently prep heavy game anyway, but like I tried to do like a bunch of prep and then they did what they did. Yeah. And I,
what improvisers do. Yeah.
And it was sort of this light bulb moment for me where I realized that the place that I like to play is in that space of the table decides almost everything, that very little is decided ahead of time, and that we can be malleable at the table and create the thing that we want together rather than one person preps it, everybody else kind of plays in the playground sort of thing. And so that had a huge impact on me as a designer. It's very strange. Like a lot of my early games that I played were PBTA games or like weird hacks of PBTA games that were not like officially published versions of things. And so I did not start with the Dragon game. I did not start with the things that I think typically we see. And so I think that has definitely had an impact on making me who I am.
Right.
In fact, my earliest design was trying to make a Star Wars equivalent of like a PBTA game because we're all huge Star Wars nerds in that group. And so I wanted to make that, and that was really fun. And so, my early days of even just playing games came from that space. And then design came, my earliest designs and still my designs today are inspired by, I like to say that I'm heavily inspired by board games and a lot of stuff that I do in my role-playing games. So like Spire. I wish I could say I made Spire.
You can. What's Grant going to do?
Fight me.
Fight me.
Slayers is heavily inspired by my love of asymmetry that we see in board games, like in games like Root. So I had always loved the game Root, and I said, can we do this with role-playing games? And so my early design games came from a space of make a lot of it up together, play with weird spaces with what people can do, and my other big philosophy is to throw the concept of balance wildly out the window and then stomp on it to make sure that it's dead. And so that's how I came from a place of playing board games. I came from a place of playing power fantasy video games, and I came from a place of playing with improv comedians, and all of that came together to make me the designer that I am. And I've been designing for the last 2.5 years.
That's I think amazing. You can see all of those pieces in this game for sure. And I noticed when you talk about balance too, like that used to be one of the questions that we had in our outline was like, okay, how balanced is this game? And then we had so many designers on that were like, balance? Who cares about balance? And so like we took that out because we had so many people that were like, balance is stupid. For me, and it's a very old school concept at this point.
It really is. And like on top of that, like for me, I'm anti-balance for a few reasons. One is the fun factor on its own. Like I'd rather just do the thing that is fun and feels wildly overpowered than the thing that is balanced and not. Mathematical balance is also difficult to accomplish. So if anything, you try to accomplish like perceptive, like what people perceive as balance as opposed to mathematical balance. But then on top of that, my biggest thing is no fight would ever be fair. No fight would ever be fair in any situation. You would always fight dirty and try and be in a fight where you would have the advantage. So the concept of trying to balance an encounter seems foreign to the concept of fighting to me.
Right. Nobody would get in a fight if you weren't like pretty sure you were going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're an idiot. So,
well, especially when your life is on the line, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Which in most RPGs, those are the kinds of stories you're playing.
It's pretty life or death most of the time. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what do you look for in a system as far as character creation goes? Like, what sort of pieces need to be there for you to be able to create really great characters?
For me, it's the number one most important thing is speed. This is something that I've just learned in general is a preference of mine. You know, when I did my early like fantasy campaigns, I would do the like once a week 4-hour sessions that it like had like sort of like I had absorbed from the ether is like what you're supposed to do with a fantasy game. Yeah. And so it would be these long things. And so I had been drilled into this idea of like, it has to be these long, epic things all the time. And so you need character creation that will follow that, that'll support that sort of thing. And for me, an ideal session is now like 90 minutes. After 90 minutes, I'd be like, are we done? Have we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish? Cool. We'll meet in a week.
I know. I was going to say, I play about 2-hour sessions and I'm like, my attention span, I don't know if it's gotten worse as I've gotten older or what, but I'm like, how did I sit for 4 hours? Like, why did I think that was a good amount of time?
Right. So for me, I like to think about a character creation process that moves quick too. And it doesn't have to be like it's done in 5 minutes. But what I mean is that there are not a lot of paths that you have to explore before you make decisions, but instead like you feel like you're making progress in the character creation process at a clip that feels like you're like it's accomplishing things. You're not sitting there going, okay, I need to study this for 30 minutes before I decide this next important decision that I'm making, as opposed to like, okay, it might take me like 5-7 minutes to make this like really key decision, but then we're on to the next thing. So speed's really important to me. But also I've learned now more so the character creation is fine, but characters are created through play and they're created through sessions, even if it is a one shot. I didn't say yes as if we like like yes, they are created through play. I say as we never play the characters. Yeah, exactly, right. But like, you know, we have the bones of our characters here, and we've got some really cool bones, but I'm excited to see them evolve. And so to me, character creation is equally important to world creation. And world creation is always more interesting to me when there is collaboration at the table. So, you know, we did this thing where we made our very cool, actually not cool, sounds like a nightmare city that we made. But, you know, that was fascinating because now even if I was the GM, I wouldn't have thought about all of that stuff on my own. And now I know that there are these hooks that the players are interested in exploring. And so character creation is equally as important to me as like world creation, or like, you know, a lot of things that you see in session 0 where you're establishing like, what are the things that we want to see? It's why I think beats are like the greatest thing that were ever created for role-playing games ever. I think beats that we see in art are just like, it's, again, I'm going to fight Grant because I'm good. He is at this stuff. Like I'm a huge advocate for beats because it kind of keeps that character creation process ever going. Where you're like, this is the next thing that I want my character to be and to explore in narrative ways.
Yeah, I believe that he and Chris referred to those as scenes we want to see, like from Whose Line. And it's true. It is. Like, I love being able to, as a player, sit down and say, like, here's what I want you to do. And I think I have that in our session 0 document too, of like, what are the themes and stories and like story beats that you as a player want to hit? Like, what do you want your GM to bring up for you? Right. And it's such a good, it's such a good conversation to have that I think, you know, for so long it was like, okay, well, I'll sit here and I'll hope that the GM does what I want them to do. And it's like, no, just tell them what you want. Just say the words and they'll do it. And that can
go so sideways when you make those sort of assumptions, because like you either like do the thing where you write 5 pages of backstory and then it either becomes completely irrelevant because it's ignored, or it becomes the only thing that you do. And then it becomes very prescriptive and also stops the spotlight necessarily from shining on other players. And so to me, just having like 2 or 3 things that you are very fascinated by as a character, but also a player, and then we then find the next thing that you're interested in through play, as opposed to here's the long, elaborate thing that I must resolve, and here's why.
Right. And it's like, go take that home and write your novel. And the rest of us will play a game. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I like that we are not creating characters on this podcast. We're creating potential.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So we might have to rebrand as like a potential person podcast or something.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Potential people podcast.
Potential people podcast is pretty fun.
It is. That's another bonus episode that we can make, Ryan.
There you go.
One of the things that we like to do is we like to look at character sheets and talk about the intention of the design behind character sheets, because I think they can tell us a lot about what you're going to use and what you're going to do in a game. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the decisions that you made as far as the design of your character sheets?
Yeah, so the decision process or the design process for the character sheets is actually largely driven by Jam, who did the layout from this. She is an incredible layout artist and designer. So Jam and Eddie are the reason that Nova looks as good as it does. And so, you know, I had described to Jam this idea that these are it's builds. And this is something that we talked about in our time in the previous episodes of, I consider these end game characters. So you are level 20. So now it's about builds. What are the things that are going to make your character play differently or the way that you want them to play? So the sheet needed to represent this idea of being able to sort of like slot in almost mods into places so that you knew what was powering your spark at a given time. And so I think Jam did a really good job of sort of creating these sort of like containers and pools where mods will live, but then also places where it's clearly like this is plugged into this and this is the thing that you are currently using. I also think that the character sheet just looks kind of like a HUD of sorts. Like
it really does. It really does. Like something you'd see in like, you know, Fallout or Borderlands or something like that.
I can even imagine like a mini version of this is in our Sparks, like in the HUD of like inside, we see like a quick, rundown of our equipped mods so that we know what's going on and we see the meters of health and fuel. And so I think Jam really knocked it out of the park in terms of highlighting that this is about customization rather than a full definition of who your character is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know one of the things I always comment on is how easy it is to figure out where things go on a character sheet because nothing annoys me more than picking out things and then being like, I don't know where to put this now. Like, you told me it was an important decision, but my sheet does not imply that at all. And this one was, you know, again, when I didn't have to like ask any questions. It was like, okay, it's obvious that this slots in over here and that this spot is for this. And it was really easy to just look at it and say, okay, I can see that these things are important. This is what I need to know. And it was only one page.
I love that, right?
Which was nice. Which was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like how it feels like this would be almost like an interface for like a video game too. At the same time, where like I would click and drag what I've got in here to the various slots and attach it to the cool power or whatever, and it'll have that satisfying sound effect that happens when
yes, it does feel like that. You're right. It does feel like it would make like some kind of like clicking or like something when you put it in.
When you drag it in, you see like the tooltip for the power like update. When you drag it in, you see like the green arrow, the numbers are going up or something. And you see like
it looks like that.
That's
and I can picture this on the screen where you have your spark. And then like the way it augments, like it has a visual change.
Yes. Yeah. So it like spins as you do it. And like as you put the like slot the mod in, something like lights up on the actual like,
Yeah.
So I have to make a Nova video game.
It looks like the sheet does that.
Honestly, a Nova video game with a Dynasty Warriors sort of combat aesthetic with all these powers. Oh my goodness.
And then maybe like a city building thing too.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll devote my life to this now.
Great. Now go ahead and quit your day job and then.
No, it needs to happen. No. So how do we think then character creation in Nova stacks up to other systems that we've played?
I personally would say it's quick. It was really quick. I always expect our recordings to take a while, and I was like looking at the clock as I'm like, oh, we are like really.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
We're powering through.
Before we got to the extra stuff with the city building and like fleshing out the actual pilot stuff. Like it was pretty fast.
It was. I liked that it once we picked that initial like type, that it was like, okay, now I don't feel nearly as overwhelmed by the decisions. It was like, okay, you initially like there's the 9 choices, and then from there, my personal choices that I have to make are very small.
Yeah.
It's like that really in total, there's lots of options that you can pick, but I don't have to pay attention to what Ryan's choices are. I just have to pay attention to my choices.
Yeah.
Which feels a lot less overwhelming than something that's like, okay, now pick 4 skills and here's a list of 800 skills. And,
if you had to pick from like, here's all the persistent mods possible in existence, figure out which ones would apply to your specific mech. And then they would all have to be generic, like you wouldn't get that extra delicious flavor like you do.
No, and it was like, it's like 4 that are like, the persistent mods, it's like 4 that are stats, 4 that are kind of flavorful, and then just like pick from those. And because I hate comparing everything to PBTA, because I just feel like we talk about PBTA as like the only like sort of like, toolkit kind of thing. But I like that it had that same, like, I pick my thing and then my choices are in front of me. However, unlike PBTA, because they are mods, I really like that you can slot them in and out. I like that unlike playbook moves where I pick them and then that's mine and that's it, and I have to find situations to make that thing fit. This was like in between. If you want to pop it out and put something else in that spot because you think that'll apply better, go for it. I loved that. I love it so much.
I'm so glad to hear that sentiment of not having to think about what other people are doing during this process. Because, that could be a big part of character creation, is thinking about like party dynamics and like, do we have all the roles of a party covered? And
for sure. Like, is there a healer? Is there like, oh, nope, we're all going to die.
Right.
Okay.
Is there a tank?
And we don't have to worry about that because, again, this is a power fantasy where we're all incredibly powerful on our own. Like, we'll be fine. And then we only just become cooler and more powerful like, doesn't matter who our teammates are. We're going to be good. Right. We're going to be fine. And we found like only after the fact, like, oh, okay, so we've all done this. Now let's think about how our party would like, how would we function in the battlefield? And then we realized like how it would work. And that was cool instead of having to think like, okay, we don't have a healer. Somebody has to be the healer. And then like somebody just gets assigned that role.
Right. Yeah, I did like that because I know as we were looking through the different sparks and the options too, like always in the back of my mind is that like, okay, like who's going to play, the tank, who's going to play the healer, who's going to, because usually Ryan is our healer and I am not. And which is funny because when I play Overwatch, I always play a healer. But I liked not having to think about that because even when you're reading the abilities, it's pretty clear that everybody can kind of do a little bit of like you can do enough to keep you alive. Right. Yeah. Which is always being self-sufficient to a certain degree is always kind of nice because then it doesn't become somebody's whole job to like not participate in the adventure. Like the adventure's happening here and somebody else has to be facing back here to make sure that everybody else can participate. That's always like kind of a bummer to me.
Yeah, well, plus the fact that you're going into it knowing that you can't die.
Yeah.
Right.
That you're going to win.
That's true. That's true. That is a big part of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of that like pressure of is our party balanced for
am I making all the
game?
right choices? So, yeah. There's a lot less pressure there of like, am I making a character that can like really hold their own here? And it was like, everybody can. It's fine.
Yeah.
What looks cool? What feels cool?
Yeah. I like that. The rule of cool baked into character creation.
Yeah, I need to get the rule of cool tattooed on me because it truly fuels literally everything I do, both in design and running and playing games. Like that's number one.
I mean, I feel like I know we kind of answered that question for you. Do you have thoughts about how this stacks up other than like you mentioned you like it to be quick, which this definitely was.
I think just the thing that is important to me is, and it's the one that I had highlighted before, is just that there are no necessarily like traditional roles covered by the sparks. Like you can find like the warden is pretty tanky and like the scorch is kind of caster like, but they don't have to be that way. Like a warden with the right mods is terrifying. Like they can pick people up, basically turn them into grenades and throw them at other people. And so,
oh my God, that's so cool.
You don't have to be the person that everybody stands behind. You could be the person that's running around literally like throwing enemies at each other and exploding them. So my hope is that this has created a scenario where you don't feel like you've ever chosen the wrong spark. You've never feel like you have to choose a particular thing because the game requires it or the party dynamics require it, and that you can do what you want. And certainly that exists in some games, but other games there's definitely that necessity of like we need the fighter role, we need the caster role, and et cetera. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like that freed me up a lot to do kind of whatever I wanted. I mean, and granted, like on this show, I always have that freedom because we don't have to play the game. But we do still end up kind of doing that a lot of the time, being like, okay, well, we could, we don't have this, so I'll do that. And not having to do that is kind of nice.
Absolutely.
How does the process of character creation in this game reinforce what playing the game is going to feel like? How does it set those expectations for us?
I know I had a real visceral reaction, like at one point that was like it where everything clicked.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, combat's a puzzle. You're going to have different puzzle pieces, different actions to choose. And then you've got these mods to add some cool effects and stuff. And I think the point where I found out that +1 range
made that big of a difference.
Added to an AoE that affects everything around you. Like, I was like, oh, I get it.
It's like we talked about things like literally like making that click sound. Like, yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Like
Brian's brain's doing that too.
It was like, wait a minute. Oh, Oh yes, this is.
You got so excited. You were
now.
like +1, right? Like I don't think I've ever seen anybody get that excited about a +1 in my life.
It made me so happy when you had that light bulb moment. I was like, yes, you see it.
Now you get it. Haha.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited about the game and excited about like the potential of everything we had been talking about up to that point. But then once I got that realization, I was like, now I need this like sort of combat role play, because it is just it's so like just from character creation, I've got this like it's going to be like this strategic sort of, you know, almost a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing, but like to the next level sort of deal. And
yeah, I really think it highlighted that sort of puzzle kind of aspect that you were talking about like even just like picking the mods that go with which thing I was going to slot it into and that kind of stuff too. Very much it fit that description that you gave us for combat of things, you know, like not being like, are you going to win, but how? And it really was like, okay, well, I can do all of these things, but how am I going to do them? How well am I going to do them? Like, which ones am I going to use more? And I feel like that really reinforced that concept that you were talking about before.
And seeing, we've got 12 slots on the character sheet for persistent mods that you own, 12 slots for power mods that you own, and then you can have 4 persistent mods like at once and 2 power mods for each power. Like
Ryan's brain is just
like having those all filled up.
It's just like I can see like all of the little like sparks like connecting. It's all of the little pathways. It's like, okay.
Yeah, my brain probably looks like what the moon looks like in this world.
I mean, this is so exactly what I was hoping to kind of convey in the character creation and just in the idea of you are max level characters. It's about builds now. It's about, you know, even if you took no mods into the field, you would be incredibly effective on missions. And now it's you are the max level. What equipment do you want to slap on that is going to make those missions feel the way that you want them to feel?
And how cool can I look while I do it?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the combos. That's like one of my favorite things is people figuring out the really wild combos that you can pull off, both just like internally, like what your own character can do, but then you start to exactly like think about like, so if I do this and you do this, can you imagine what we can do? Like Ryan came to the realization that he could just take his own blood out of his body, give it to one of us to heal us effectively, and kill himself, which activates the supernova, which it's just like
which then creates all kinds of dead things that I can then play around with. Like it's it's very cool. It's very cool.
In the comics, there's that concept of like the fastball special where like Colossus throws Wolverine at somebody. Like I wanted the fastball special to be a thing that just kind of happens naturally in Nova, where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that if you do this, it sets me up to do this. And it just kind of goes from there.
And I can just imagine how cool that feels in play, you know, because I talked a couple times now about how like combat for me really tends to drag because it gets kind of like it is the only part of role-playing games where there are really defined distinct turns too, where it's like not everybody gets to do something right now. Like this part is not collaborative. Whereas it feels like in this one, it really is, because we need to be able to set each other up to do those things to have like the maximum impact. And it really is that kind of puzzle. That just my brain really likes that. My brain really likes that.
And like in game, in the story, you can start naming these maneuvers.
Oh my gosh, you could.
Right?
You could name the combos.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And just kidding, we're not gonna play it, but
you know, the rules of Lumen and so Nova basically dictate that all the players go first and they get to decide in whatever order they want to go. So you discover these combos as you play and you realize like, okay, we need Sanguine to go first, and then, Pox, and then Grim follows up. And then we realize the different ways that we can change that order, because we all do stuff. And then the GM acts and reacts to us. And then we have now a new situation on the battlefield for us to ponder. And we go, okay, do we need a new combo that's going to overcome this next thing? Like, how do we overcome, this weird twist that's been brought on? And so it just kind of cycles into that again and again.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I love this narrative challenge type of fun that you've unlocked with this. That like normally challenge fun is like, all right, what do I need to do to get this thing's hit points down to 0 and where can I position and all that sort of stuff. This is like
dungeon puzzles but combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my goal. I love to hear that. Oh, that makes me so happy.
I love that about this show too, when we're like, okay, so here's what I think, and then designers are like, that's what I wanted, and we're like,
it truly is the best feeling when you're like, because you do play testing and stuff, but a lot of this still is done on your own.
It's like in your head.
It's what I believe the game is supposed to do, but does it do that, or do other people sense that and get that vibe? And then the second they say it's the greatest feeling in the world. Yes. It's so good when you're like, it did do the thing I wanted it to do.
I know. So I love people's faces when we say that, and they're like, yes, good.
I am thoroughly tempted to make a Lumen Magical Girls game.
There you go.
Oh, I would like to see you try it.
I don't have time.
Okay, well, when you finish your 800 other playbooks for your game that you're already doing, you can...
Well, one of the questions that I always love asking designers, what do you think is one of the biggest flaws of character creation in Nova, and what is one of your favorite parts?
They're interesting. I almost feel like they're two sides of the same coin. So here's my thing for biggest flaw is, we mentioned the idea that we aren't overwhelmed with giant lists of mods and stuff like that. But I think there is still a tax on cognitive load in Nova character creation, because there are enough mods that when you realize that you can move them around, you're now playing around with the combinations that emerge. And, it's only 2 mods, but even still 2 mods, swapping around the different mods and moving them into different powers and things, like there's a lot that you can puzzle out. And oftentimes what happens is people puzzle something out and then they play a session and they realized they could have done something differently, or like there's a different combo that would have worked more in line with their doing. And I always encourage people to just then like, okay, do it again. Like just, swap out your mods. That's fine. I'm not your dad. I won't stop you. But I do think that it can be a lot. And if you are the sort of person who wants to like min-max, like I think it can be that sort of thing where you could sit, like you'd want to like not do it in person at the table, but you'd want to like give me my homework to study all the possible combos, and that can be fun for people. But I think it can definitely be it can be overwhelming for sure. So I think that
I can see that.
Tricky. And so my greatest recommendation is to just be flexible with one another. Like you technically established your attributes and health and fuel before this, and then you might realize afterwards as you're doing mods, like, oh, actually, I kind of wish my health was a little lower, or that I had a little more sun, and you're technically done with that step, and you shouldn't go backwards, but why not, right? And so right, exactly.
Games are supposed to be fun.
So
I know not everyone agrees, but
I think that is probably the trickiest part of it. The best part, I'll go in a different direction. I think the best part is that you can literally, I guess it's kind of similar. You can do no wrong though. Is that like, there's nothing that just doesn't work. You can't make a bad character. And I think that's really important, is that you can't make a character that is going to be ineffective, won't do anything out there, will fail, because again, the powers just happen by you spending fuel to do them. So you always get to do these things. And even if you had no mods, you'd still be super powerful. So yes, it can be a lot, but choose, but at the end of the day, kind of just like choose, and you totally will be
like
fine.
Technically, you will be. We talked about that in our Legend of the Five Rings episodes that like that was one of the comments we had about the game is that it's too easy to make a bad character, that you can walk out of character creation having made decisions that meant you could not do core things that your character was supposed to be able to do. And that absolutely is not the case in this one, is that like you can do things that are maybe more optimal depending on the situation, but overall you never won't be able to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and also a big part of that comes from that there are no skill lists in most Lumen games too. So like your combat effectiveness is great because your powers always work, but also out of combat, like you have attributes that allow you to, you're these incredibly highly technologically advanced robots. You're going to be able to do most things. So like just roll your attribute, and with the way the odds work, you're probably going to succeed. So, you know, or there might be a complication. So truly, my goal was to make it so that nobody ever felt like they had wasted the character creation process and that they need to like start new and or anything like that.
Yeah. Ryan, it's time.
Yes.
It's time for fanfic. This is the part where we pretend that we played the game. Okay, I want to know like what kind of missions are we going on? What are we doing? What does the government have us doing? That's my first question, is like, what kind of stuff do they want us to do?
Because that's the question of like, what are our missions? I think it depends on like where we are in the timeline of our campaign. Because we talked about like early on, exactly like you said, like the government or like whoever runs this city, like largely uses us as a force to do things that probably just keep the city functioning and running and stuff like that. I imagine we do. I imagine like, yeah, we have a giant sun shard, but I think we also still have to like get a lot of stuff for the city or just like the sun shard powers things, but we probably need like raw material to keep expanding the way we are. And so like finding and securing locations that hold stuff is probably like some of our earliest, most important work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think possibly finding more of those like smaller towns so that we can kind of like expand like between them, expand out from theirs and then into ours, kind of absorb them.
I can imagine a big thing in this world would be moving some of the smaller sun shards as well.
Ooh, can you pick them up and move them?
Like I can imagine.
You're
that
like, I don't know.
If we've got this advanced tech, right? Well, right, because like, okay, so you've got these smaller shards that could conceivably be, relocated, even if you have to dig up a big mound of dirt underneath that is lodged into to move that mound. Like if it's in the middle of nowhere, that's not going to help anything. You want to get it either near a river so you can have some fresh water, or near like a mine for like the resources, near a place with fertile ground for doing some farming or whatever, right? So like I could see some of the missions being like, we need to set up like an auxiliary satellite settlement near this mine or something for some, metal and whatnot. So we're moving a sun shard today. You're on guard duty. And, I think like most of the missions that we go on as a trio probably involve some sort of biohazard potential.
It feels very on brand for our three sparks.
Yeah, right? I can totally see that.
But also I want to just fight hordes of bad guys.
I kind of do too. Like at some point I want to fight spooky creatures.
Yes,
for sure.
Just like
weird
waves of weird, spooky creatures that we can enthrall and just like.
And this is not a thing that I have ever said before. Is that like I would like to just fight like a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I think that's cool. Then with like this idea of we're trying to either like set up satellite places or we're trying to like find sun shards. Like there will be other people out there finding sun shards that are either like, I imagine like creatures of the dusk are drawn to it just because they somehow like absorb the power and they become more grotesque than they already are. I imagine like lunar cults are out there trying to destroy the shards before they get secured. And so we have to go like stop cultist uprisings.
Oh, big fan of that.
The Corvus definitely want the shards because they're stuck on this planet, and I'm sure they want to just get off. And they're like, if this is the only power source, we're going to take it, and we have advanced technology to do it. So I feel like, I think with like the level of tech our city is at, like I feel like the Corvus are like our biggest threat because they are the only probably the only other like tech levels out there that match our giant grotesque city that we work out of.
Horrible place, our horrible dystopia. Yeah.
So we're gonna go kill a lot of alien birds.
I'm okay with that. But I also like the idea that like maybe they're not so bad compared to our terrible, political situation that we've created.
I do like humans are the real monsters.
I'm a big fan of that trope.
That is a good trope.
It always hits. It always does a good job. It's always good.
It's a little too real.
Yeah. I want to. Okay, so I feel like at some point there's an inflection point in our journey through these missions. Like we're just doing the standard stuff and whatever. But then like we're sent to like maybe there's like a mountain that has a shard embedded in it, like deep in the mountain, and there was a civilization there. Like there was a city that built up around that, but now that city's like a ghost city. Like there's nobody that lives there anymore. The shard is still there. It's still like powering things, but there's like no control over it anymore.
What happened to them?
And we find out that it was purposefully done. Like
so that
our city did it to steal that shard.
We're the worst.
All right. I'm with the bird people on this one.
Yep.
Yeah. So like we're going there to move that shard. I also want to
get off this planet.
This is good. And like, I know, so my character is kind of conflicted because I've got this weird like lunar virus on my dead partner. I almost feel like I'll reach a point where I'll be like, maybe we should just unleash this on like the inner circle. Like if we can like quarantine off the middle.
There's a big dinner party and
we release the lunar cult plague through. And we try to keep it contained, and then of course it doesn't.
Yeah, well, and then of course, they don't wear masks, and then
right, and then the lunar cult has their in on our city, and so now we're also dealing with that.
Yeah, except for the wealthy ones that are able to get to their sparks fast enough.
Right, and they're up in Babylon, that garden.
That beautiful garden city.
I'm both like excited and shaking my fist at these people.
Like, I can't believe these people are horrible. We made them.
This is our own doing.
I really want the aesthetic of like near the end of the campaign of that tower falling.
Oh,
yes. Absolutely, it falls.
Yeah, I think it falls, but then I think also like the greenery part kind of like takes over some of it too.
Yeah.
Just eats it alive.
Interesting.
Now
the city's like getting sectioned off into like the various threats, right? Because now you've got like haze dwellers, those beasts like are like loose and like using their connection to like nature to rapidly evolve and take over the central ring. And we've got cults everywhere. We've got the birds that are like the humans are on their side in the outer ring and causing a revolution. Yeah. And let's not forget the bandits that are out there. There's the Hellions who just want to light everything on fire. So who knows what they're doing?
And lest we not forget the giant tentacled monstrosity in the ocean.
Right, that's right. We did put Cthulhu over in the ocean too.
right.
Just in case.
I guess we'll have to get to that.
Okay. Hordes of like squishy monsters to kill.
Yeah.
And giant battle. Like one giant monstrosity
giant squishy thing. So like a bunch of smaller squishy things.
Yeah. So like you've got to face this like 500-foot tall behemoth that's coming from the ocean.
Does it control the weather or did it just like get struck by lightning?
I think it just got more powerful by the lightning.
Okay.
Oh God.
Like it's feeding from the lightning energy.
The lightning. Okay.
It feeds off of energy. So of course, what's the closest giant energy source within range?
Is it our city?
Giant spire spotlight in the middle of
near
the coastline.
dark planet. Yep.
I want to fight a giant. Cthulhu-esque
do.
monster.
I want to fight a
this.
giant squid.
I want to play the 4-year-long campaign that
That we
covers
just
all this
created.
entire arc.
Right. Not to mention all of the other stuff that would come up along the way, right?
Right, exactly.
Yep. Well, but we're not going to. So instead, we will move into our advancement segment and take it up a level.
Take it up a level. Take it up a level.
In this segment, we like to cover how character advancement and character growth work. I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but let's talk about like leveling up. How does quote unquote leveling up work in Nova? And then mechanically, what happens when you do?
So leveling up happens just at the end of missions. When you complete a mission in Nova, your spark advances, and that comes in the form of gaining access to new mods. So you only select 2 mods in the beginning of the game with character creation, but as the character sheet implies, you have the ability to kind of pool and collect lots more of these. So as you complete more missions, you don't have things like HP increases or new skills that you get. Instead, you're choosing new mods to add to your pool. Mm-hmm. And then between missions, you're deciding with your collection of mods, which are the ones that I want to do. So again, kind of trying to capture that idea of you really don't level up anymore because you're at max level. It's now I've got all this different equipment on. Which equipment do I want to wear on this mission so that I behave the way that I do, that I fight the way that I want to fight on this particular mission?
Cool.
Oh, it's so good. I can imagine like narratively too, like you're getting access for different reasons. Like, oh, hey, you did a good job. Here's a new mod for you because we think it'll help you out. To like, I need this mod. They're not letting me have it. It's time to do a heist.
Oh,
yes.
I also was thinking like we need like a Q NPC too.
Yeah, someone who's kind of like giving you like readouts on all of your stuff and saying like, I analyzed the data of your last mission and I noticed that you need to be
I
slightly
invented this new thing for
right.
you. Yeah.
I do like that. I do like that character a lot.
Yeah, I like the idea that I really like the idea of a heist, Ryan. I really like the idea of like that is, like the mechanical reward being a story piece of like we had to go get it, and now I have this thing because I stole it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm such a sucker for crime in games. So
I was gonna say you said that at the beginning that like you like when your games have crime. Well, we solved that for you. Didn't we?
Wow, Nova Crime is here and we're ready to do it. I'm
stealing mods. Yep,
absolutely. My goodness.
Yeah, probably from some of those rich people. They probably have mods that we don't have.
Absolutely, have it.
Right, because like we're government funded, so for sure we don't have all the nice things that the rich people have.
That can even make the heist really dangerous too, because like we had talked about the wealthy having these like customized sparks of their own, but if these sparks have access to tech that we don't, like that makes it like, oh, we'll just go take it from the rich people, and then we realize that they have like this wickedly advanced tech that we have never faced before, and we're like, this is
they're like
new.
Private military level. Yeah. Oh, that would be so much fun. That's okay. Tack that. So now it's a 5-year campaign.
It's like I know we joked about it earlier, but we have so many hooks in the city itself that we would never have to go outside of it. Just do it all in the city.
Yep.
Oh, but how dangerous would some of these supernovas be in the middle of a populated center?
Right. Exactly.
Right. That's true too.
Oh.
Yeah, just that's the last thing you need is sparks that are literally exploding in fire and hailstorms of destruction around everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oops, all blood.
Oops, all blood.
Oops, all blood.
Yikes. No. Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Well, is there anything else that we want to say about Nova before we pack up this amazing discussion?
Good.
Good.
Nova good. Nova good. Nova good. Very
Truly,
good.
I don't need to hear anything more. That's all I need.
Oh, goodness. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Nova.
Thank you so much for having me here. This was unbelievably fun. I'm going to be sad leaving these characters in this world, like in the ether. But this was so much fun. I had a great time chatting with you about Nova, and yeah.
Absolutely. Well, can you remind everyone where they could find you online and the other things that you have going on?
Absolutely. So you can find me online at Gila RPGs, GILA-RPGs.com. That's my website that links to my Itch.io page, where you can find all my games digitally, PDF versions. Or you can find the link to my Shopify, where you can buy games like Nova in printed format. Nova has a paperback and a hardcover copy, depending on what you like. Otherwise, following me on Twitter at Gila RPGs is probably the best way to stay up to date on what I'm up to. I shout about my design process and the agony that it causes me all the time. So if you want updates on that, that's probably the best thing to do.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone for tuning in.
Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
So I was listening to the part 2 of this series earlier today, as of this recording, and my goodness, I want Nova Mars so bad.
I love when like world building starts to like spin out like that.
Yeah.
Like I could world build forever.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's where I constantly get stuck in any kind of like gameplay or game design thing. It's why the only game I want to run is Arium, because we just do the world creation and then I never have to do anything else. Because I could just like do that forever. Yeah.
Like what does it mean on the neighboring planet? What happens there? Were humans there when the sun exploded? If so, what are they like? If so, what are they doing now?
If there's sun shards on Mars, is terraforming more possible than it was before because the sun is closer?
Yeah. And then sun shards are also floating through space right now, hurling through space that didn't hit any planets. Like what happened to them? Are there sun shards orbiting the Earth right now that got caught in the Earth's gravity? You know, there's all this cool stuff that you can do. It's just like, well, hey, this leads to this and this leads to this. And it's like, goodness gracious.
World building's great.
It's so good.
Wish we had more time for it.
I agree. Well, what we don't have more time for is our calls to action. So
we do have time for those.
Well, yes.
We're going to do them right now.
We'll do them now.
Okay. Good plan.
And then we'll bid everybody adieu. So, as we mentioned in our cold open, the Kickstarter for Catacon 2022 just went live last week as of the release of this episode. At the time of this recording, which is the launch day for the Kickstarter, they were nearly halfway to their goal already. We are hopeful that we can actually get there this year. It's really too soon to say anything for sure, given the pandemic and health issues, but we're crossing our fingers. We'll put a link to the Kickstarter in the show notes. I'm probably 50-50 on whether or not we'll be there, but
yeah, I'm waiting to see, you know.
Yeah.
I'll back the Kickstarter, I'll get my badge, and we'll see what happens, I guess.
I think I still have a badge from 2020 that just keeps getting kicked to the next year. Because I had the VIP badge back then. Oh, and I haven't been able to utilize it yet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I really want to go. I miss people.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
It might be small enough. It might be okay enough, and we'll see what happens. I mean, Gen Con just happened, and we'll see. Probably not nearly half as much as has happened there, since it's like, you know, less than 1% of that size.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have new merch available on the One Shot Podcast TeePublic store. Ooh. So you can get your hands on our official Magical Girl versus Necromancer shirt, or stickers, or a coffee mug, or
so good.
Whatever else you desire.
Such a good design.
I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
It's based off the art from our 4-year Q&A episodes. So if you look back in your podcast feed or on our Twitter or something like that, it's in there. Or you can go to the store and just see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it. We are excited to have something finally that truly represents our official brand, TM. We will put a link to that in the show notes. Ryan and I made ourselves separate shirts. So Ryan has one that just has a magical girl and I have one that just has a necromancer. But this one is the official Versus shirt.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about it.
It's so good. Another thing we're excited about, we've got a lot of great stuff up on our Patreon right now. Patrons at the $1 and up level have access to our bonus outtakes that don't make it into the episode. And $5 and up gets you access to our Patreon archive, which includes early release episodes as they're edited and other bonus content like our actual play of the Broken RPG and a lot more.
I know we have 1 or 2 games that we've recorded, micro games that we'll get in there at some point. Yep. And now that we don't have so many spotlight episodes, we were on a run there for a while.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's lots of good stuff in there. It's exciting. We do want to thank those of you, though, who have already backed us. You're helping keep the show running, and you're making it possible for us to do even more cool stuff in the future that we are really excited about and really want to do. So thank you to our first patron, Lieutenant, for your continued support. And Eric Bonds, thank you as well for your support. David, a.k.a. Tigranosaurus, former guest, thank you.
Matt Newton, thank you as well.
Daryl Holiday II, thank you for your support.
Shadim Cabal, thank you as well.
To the Shyest Barbarian, thank you so much for your support.
Benjamin Sweeney, thank you as well.
Lorcan McGinnis, thank you so much.
Thank you to Rob Fletcher.
And finally, to Kevin Brown, thank you so much.
And thank you to all of our future patrons. We wouldn't be able to make this show as easily without your assistance, and we truly appreciate your generosity.
If you want to support us in another way, we are once again out of reviews. You can leave a review for our show on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, and Facebook. We read all of our 5-star reviews on the show, and we've also been sharing them every week on our social media as part of our hashtag 5-Star Friday.
Yeah.
So you can not only hear them here, but you can see them out in the world.
Yeah, they're very nice. I like the graphic format that you came up with, and it's just a nice little celebration, like Follow Friday or whatever. It ends up just being a ton of hashtags and stuff, and so it's really nice, 5-Star Friday, to shout out the nice things that people have said, and honestly, to go back and read them as we're making the graphics and stuff has been really fun. It's been a lot of fun. I'm also looking forward to, we're thinking about doing a similar thing with former guests on the show to spotlight them and the amazing stuff that they do. And now that we have a way to do that without us having to do it ourselves every single, week or whatever, I think it'll be nice once we get it set up.
Yeah.
Well, that is all that we have for this series. There are 5 Mondays in August, so there will be a 2-week break, and then we will be back in September. Until then, stay safe, take care, drink some water, take some breaths, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time. Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permissions from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero, remixed by Steve Combs, and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used in today's guest can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, extra outtakes, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Character Creation Cast was hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, head on over to oneshotpodcast.com where you'll find other great shows like Mystery County Monster Hunters Club.
Check out Mystery County Monster Hunters Club, an actual play podcast where the heroes are teens and the teens are a mess. Join a group of impulsive but well-meaning after-school monster hunters in the year 2006, doing their best to protect a weird little town in the 51st state of Superior. Through the game Monster of the Week, this cast of improvisers confronts cryptids, magic, and the biggest monster of all, feelings. Find Mystery County Monster Hunters Club at mysterycounty.com or your favorite podcast app. Nailed it.
There we go.
Got it in one.
Yeah. I even checked to make sure that it was the right microphone.
Yeah.
I'm like so professional.
Very.
Now you got me checking the
Yeah,
see
wait,
if I
I'm
got
like,
the
oh my
right
God.
mic.
It's like, I don't understand why, like, Audacity is like 50-50. Like, last time I opened it up, it's the settings are all right the first time. This time, not so much. I don't know what the deal is.
Love that.
Very strange.
Big fan.
All right, so we could go ahead and stop our recordings now.
Okay.
All right.
Hey.
Get back down to that part of the outline. Do I have to talk? Yes, I do.
I'm very jazzed about the fanfic.
I'm really excited about this. It's great.
Oh, so good.
All right. I will do a 5 count and then we will go.
All right.
Yay, we can stop our recording.
Time to stop this one.